Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. May yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lahu, lahul mulku wal hamdu yuhyi wa yumiitu, biyadihil khairu wa huwa 'ala kulli syai'in qadir. Asyhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fa asdaqal hadits kitabullah wa khairul hadi hadi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa syarrul umuri muhdatsatuhha wa kullu muhdatsatin bid'ah wa kullu bid'atin dhalalah wa kullu dhalalatin finnar. Ya ibadallah, ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Alladzina yahmiluna al-arsya wa man hawlahu yusabbihuna bihamdihi rabbihim wa yu'minuna bihi wa yastaghfirun lilladzina amanu rabbana wasi'ta kulla syai'in rahmah wa ilma faghfir lilladzina tabu wattaba'u sabilak wa qihim adzabal jahim. Rabbana wa'adhilhum jannati adin allati wa'adtahum wa man salaha min abaihim wa azwajihim wa dhurriyyatihim innaka ala kulli syai'in qadir wa qihimus sayyi'at وَمَنْ تَقِ السَّيِّئَاتِ يَوْمَئِذٍ فَقَدْ رَحِمْتَهُ وَذَلِكَ فَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. إلى آخر سورة في سورة الغافر. I want to very quickly just quick translations of the surah of Surah Al-Ghafir. The story is about an angel that's holding the arsh of Allah. The angel that is so big that if we were to describe, it will take 50,000 years moving from the earlobes to the shoulder, to the end of the shoulder. So like 4 angels that's holding the thrones of God, who is close to Allah and always glorifying Allah, and they are our cheerleaders. They said to Allah in our behalf, Ya Allah, make them successful. Because you, in everything that you create, have mercy, and you are the owner of mercy, and you are the owners of knowledge. You are the owner of wisdom. When they fall and they make a return, make it easy so they can come back. And then protect them from the punishments when they fail, and also when they mislead. Because you are the one who have mercy, and you know all things. Make sure that happens. And they said, oh Allah, also give them what you promised them, which is paradise, which they will return to, the Garden of Eden they will return to, and their parents, and their spouses, and their children, and all the people of the family. Because you can do all kind of things. These are the angels' dua for us when we repented. This is the dua when we make tawbah, when we make a U-turn, that we realize like, oh no, my GPS of my heart is leading me toward the wrong direction. Let me changing it around. Before even the actions happen, these angels are our cheerleaders, and they say like, Ya Allah, make sure that they're successful. Make sure that they're successful, and at the end, وَقِهِمُ السَّيِّئَاتِ, and protect them from evil. وَمَنْ تَقِ السَّيِّئَاتِ يَوْمَئِذٍ فَقَدْ رَحِمْتَهُ. Because whoever you protected from evil, they have truly been given rahmah. And that has changed my perspective of blessings. For me, in my mind, when I was younger, I assumed blessing is something that was given to me in abundance. Things that I have a lot, that I can either show off, I can utilize, but I will compare other people's blessing with mine based on how much they have and how much I don't have. And it creates this strange feeling of saying, Alhamdulillah, but I want more. Right? But then from this perspective, when I recognize that the angels see it differently. They see that blessings, grace, mercy is something that you are not in contact with evil. And that changed my perspective. Because I grew up in Islam, I grew up in madrasa, I was forced to be Hafiz very young. I don't feel like I've lived a life, quote unquote, a life that I thought I would have as an normal American living in high school, middle school, and school. I always thought I was missing out. I always thought there's something wrong, like, oh man, like it's like, Alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim, yeah, Alhamdulillah, but I wish I'm a convert, or so I always have that feeling. But then I realized, hold on a second. I was protected from evil as I grew up. I was protected from things that when I get older, that's what I wish for my children. So I was like, I want to protect you from trials. Like I have a 4 months now who's always sick. Ever since he's born, he's always sick, there's always problem. And during COVID time, they always assume it's COVID. And then it's not COVID. And then they still test for COVID again. And then they get fight and then get sick again. And then it's like, we have so many medications right now. And I just want to protect you, Ya Muhammad, from evil. And it's like, Allah have rahmah. And that's when I understood what that means. Understand that being thankful to Allah doesn't necessarily mean something that you have in abundance. But it is something, the fact that you are not in a place that is worse. That we are not in a place that we are starving. We're not in a place that we are unable to have education. Or we cannot ask a question. Or we can ask, wondering, we can't even ask why. Or the how. Or what. Things that sometimes that can understand into the mind. And I think that's powerful. And I want to just hold on to that. Right? Because the khutbah today, one of the khutbah, the hadith that was supposed to refer to is humility among the believers. And then along with that, I will also ask Tash to speak with the Helping Hands community to talk about the education program for the youth, for the children who are unable to have an ability to learn. And $2 a day, $60 a month, and they can talk about it with the brothers outside afterward. But hold on to this conversation. How many evils in our life that we have been prevented from? Just driving to here, like we're able to make it here, driving at ease, that in itself, we're prevented from sayyat. We're prevented from trials. We're prevented from tragedy, from traffic sign, from being hit, from him losing gas, for like the fact that we're able to come to the things that we thought we were going to do every day. And as I was looking into, I'm a very nerdy astronomy person. Sometimes we'll look at how so many meteors that will always almost hit the Earth all the time, but it was somehow we always get protected. Whether the gravity of Jupiter, or whether the sun, or whether it get too small and it burn up in atmosphere. And I'm just like, how many things that could just be chaotic? And when it does happen in our life, specifically personally, we start saying, oh, why me? What happened? Oh, Allah, what did I do? But perhaps that is one out of thousands that Allah has been preventing for a while. And then this one particularly being missing late in masjid, for example, or coming, like you try to come on time, but then like something prevents you coming on time, and then that create, struggle in your mind, like, oh man, I wish on time. But maybe that was a lesson. Or maybe something happened to the family, something happens as this evil the evil touches you. Recently, one of my friends saying, please make dua for me because I can no longer walk. I was like, what happened? Something used to get, surgery went off. And I was like, I just saw you a month ago. And then something happens, like, Allah will protect you. Well, okay, make it easy. I can't visit you. You can't visit me right now. It's too far. It's like sometimes I forgot. Because I have been protected throughout the whole COVID times that, alhamdulillah, none of my personal family actually having issues, that I forgot that a lot of people have trials, and real trials, right? And that took me a second to recognize and remember, like, alhamdulillah, and it changes my perspective, alhamdulillah. My alhamdulillah is no longer about how much I have, and how much I get paid, and how much they have, and how much the social media presented. It changed into like, alhamdulillah, my life is better than I could possibly make dua for. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever months ago. And it take a second of that and counted those blessings. And then the alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin will be a lot more sincere. And within that, it is important that we move with gratitude, with humility. And I'm not talking about humility of like pretending, oh, I'm not worthy to speak here, or like this sense of false humility when you are being highlighted. I'm talking about humility and confidence of willing to work with other people and knowing that you will not lose yourself. The confidence of like, yeah, let's collaborate. Actually, your organization has been good work for a long time. This does not make sense for me to suddenly reinvent the wheel and start over. Let me help you. I have a particular skill set, let me do that. Let's have an connected work together with a community, because the resources is the same. The community is the same. The money comes from the same pool. Let's not reinvent the wheel because I'm able to recognize that, yeah, we all have different needs, but let's do it together. I think we can make, alhamdulillah, Helping Hands has done that for a long time. I was asking for, trying to create that, working with different organizations, different masajid, different communities. And now they're having a drive of supporting youth or young children who are unable to go to school, and that speaks powerfully to me. Because when I was growing up, I was told that asking question was great, but then at the same time, asking question should not be asked question. There was two references, if you may. One of the reference, because they always use that in madrasa, is that the story of Musa. When Musa asked a question like slaughter the animals, the baqarah, they say like, innahu qala innahu yaqulu innaha baqara, and it's like inna allaha ya'murukum an tadbahu baqara, like qalu atattakhiduna huzwa, like the whole story that could be a khutbah on its own. And essentially at the end of that was the people keep asking out of arrogancy, or out of like annoyances, like a class clown who's like asking a question but not really asking a question, but just trying to like disturb the community. Like if you're a teacher and you have a student who's like inquisitive and asks a question like, hey, actually I don't understand that, can you explain to me? Compared to somebody who said, a class clown who said like, what are you talking about? Are you serious? Really? Like, really? Is it what we're doing today? Like, it's like the tone changed, right? And that was the Bani Israel was. Asking question and after question, and Musa keeps saying like, it's not me. Innahu yaqulu innaha. Allah tells me to tell you. And it's like, oh no, but tell me what it is. Allah tell me to tell you. The cow is yellow. And it's like, oh, but then well, how old they are? Like, Allah told me to tell you. Like, what kind is it? Allah told me to tell you. Like, Musa keep constantly saying, like, Allah is telling me to tell you to do this. And they're almost unable to do. So growing up, like, don't ask questions, just do it. Do it for fisabilillah. But then later on, I learned that, in order for you to learn something, you have to ask questions. In fact, Allah empower people who ask questions about wine. Like, yas'alunaka anil khamr. Like, like Allah was like, what do you mean? It's like they were actually asking legit questions. What about wine? What about alcohol? Or questions about like, yas'alunaka anil shahrul haram. Like, qitalun fi. Like, when can we fight? When can we fight in the day? It's like what? I was like, I don't understand. Can you bring it back? And then the teacher used to say, because Allah can simply say, this is what you must do about khamr. This is what you must do about maisir. This is what you must do. But Arabically, you don't have to say, yes, alunaka. And like, it doesn't have to be like, they ask you, Prophet. Why? Because, like, what does that mean? It's like, because we believe that Quran, everything in the Quran has a reason, right? And there's no redundancy. There's no, it's very efficient. It's there for a reason. And it's very specific. So if Allah said, a questioner has asked a question to you, O Messenger of God, about khamr, about maisir, about kitab, about this thing. What is that thing? Allah is honoring the question itself. So meaning question is not something that you should not do. It is the way how you ask the question. Are you asking with humility? Are you asking to learn? Or are you asking to just simply of just creating fitna? And it's just powerful. And I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't understand that. Like, I always told that just stay quiet, just do what you do and don't ask questions. Like, no. It was like, because in hadith. And then my teacher, alhamdulillah, they was telling me, like, that's a hadith, as we know. We were supposed to ask, like, in the university, you were supposed to ask that, a chapter must be connected to a line and to the paragraph, so they cannot just take that out of context. Context is everything. You need to know how it comes from and who is it talking to, right? So it is important you ask questions. And I was like, wow, amazing. And that's the power of education. Look, I am just sharing you a very small tidbit of maybe an hour of my time, of how question is actually more complicated than just like don't ask or ask, right? It's like there's context to this. So we should, when we have the time, when we're given privilege, when evil has not touched us, I think it's important that we give back as we can. That's another question, like, well, how do we give up? Do we give up openly or do we get hit secretly? I think there's time and place to do things secretly, and there's time and place to do things openly. If you encourage people to donate, if you encourage people to encourage and uplift people, do so. If you're afraid in your heart, like, I'm showing off, then don't do it in privately. But either way, the opportunity is there. The brothers will be outside and helping out. $2 a day, $60 a month for one person, for one child to be empowered to learn. So they can ask questions, and they can ask and they can learn. And I think that's powerful because Allah wasita kulla shay rahmatan wa ilma. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhan nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taslima. Make dua for these moments are accepted. Bismillahi wa kafa. Wa salamun ala sayyidina Muhammad al-Mustafa. Rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma thabbitna bi la ilaha illallah indal maut. Allahumma ij'alna minal muqarrabin. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ridhaka wa jannah wa na'udzu bika min sakhatika wan nar. Allahumma ij'alna minal ladzina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Thumma amin. In a conversation that I was researching for the mandatory khutbah today was a chapter of Riyadus Sholihin, volume 1, chapter 71, about stories of humility with the believers. There are verses of the Quran, there are ayats about that, but one particular one that I think will not be easily highlighted and sometimes are not as easily, by just reading it. It's the story about the camel of the Prophet, Adaba, who is always winning during camel race, right? For a long time, they believe like, oh, the camel, the prophet, is just like the prophet, so awesome, is always first. And then came a one of the desert Bedouin, who came through with a younger camel and won the race against the prophet's camel. And the Sahaba was reeling on that, as if they have an Aqidah crisis, because they were just like, how can this be? The camels of the prophet lose. How is that even possible? And they were reeling and they were having crisis about it. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that, Allah is the one who empowered and humble the believers. It is important. But the ayat, the particular wording of that was that whenever Allah makes some things reach the top, Allah will bring it down to humble it. So maybe that's the translation a bit off. But when I saw that, I was like, that's actually interesting. Because for us, who are living in a world where even the Pharaoh today will be jealous of us if they wake up in our life. And if we were to transfer back in time to where we are, say to Julius Caesar's, to the Pharaoh, to Cleopatra, we will want to go back here now. Why? Because there's no Wi-Fi. Why? There's no refrigerators. There is no AC. There is no comforts that we take for granted that protect us from evil. Like if I wake up one day, I'm speaking for myself, I wake up one day and I live in the time of the kingdom of Indonesia, Majapahit, in the 1600s. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. It's going to be too hot. There's no AC. There's no cars. I cannot call nobody. I want to go back. I cannot open all the juices that I want. Every food will expire in a day. No, can't do it. But yet, and at the time, they were kings of their times. And if they live, I can't handle that. So, but it's interesting to bring that to the point we are living in a place that feel like the top of comforts. When Allah humbled us by giving us trials and tribulation, is to remind us that there's something else beside this comfort that we look for. And it's not looking up and to look for more comfort, but to aid and to use the opportunity that we have to uplift others. Whatever that look like. What does that look like? Something like, okay, you know what? I usually have off on Jummuah, and I know a brother who usually cannot go to Jummuah because he have issue with transportation, because metro is really horrible. I'm going to reach out to him every day, like, hey, do you want to go to Jummuah with me? Things are normalizing, like, I'll take you with me, so that we can go Khutbah. Or what does it look like? You know what? Alhamdulillah, I pay all my rent and all the families are good and I have all this extra money. Why don't I help out, helping hands? Or maybe if I don't like this particular organization, what else can I do to help someone I know specifically in need? Or maybe my brother's has been kind of low on rent for a while. Let me call him up. Speaking of that, I haven't called my parents in a long time. Right? You create an opportunity so Allah will not humiliate us. But Allah did not humble us down because we forgot to utilize the blessing that we have. So then Allah will continue to protect us from evil. I think it's important that we bring it back to that. To a real life example, what can I do as a practicing Muslim to show the light that I have learned from this deen? And it doesn't have to be rough. It doesn't have to be specifically, hey, let me teach you Quran. Let me sit down and make salah. It could be something as simple as whatever you want to make it to be. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the people who find Jannah in everything that we do. May all the doors of paradise opens for us and calling our names and preserving of our places in Jannah closest to our beloved Muhammad sallallahu and the Sahaba and the people that we love. May Allah protect us. May Allah answer our prayers and answer it in the best way that we could even possibly know how. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the people who are muhsinin, muttaqin, mutawabin, who are doing our best to be loved by Allah, to have mercy on Allah, and to recognize that evil has been put away from us, and may Allah protect us always from evil. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusholluna 'alan nabi ya ayyuhalladzina amanu shallu 'alaihi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma shalli 'ala sayyidina Muhammad wa 'ala ali Muhammad kama shallaita 'ala Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Wa aqimus sholata yarhamukumullah. Allahu akbar, Allahu akbar. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah, asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya 'alas-sholati, hayya 'alal-falah. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. Pray as if this is the first time we talk to Allah and